Good afternoon. Welcome to EduSet Network. Friend, as you know, we have organized a series of lectures on world economy in India. So far, we have discussed the various aspects of the economic crisis the world over. But you all know that India has been affected, but not as much as the other part of the world. So, what are the region? What are the feature of it? And you also know the governments are Indian government particularly are taking steps to secure for the social security. So we will talk economic development in India in context of social security, and a very important scheme, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme has been started. It has been very helpful for the ensuring employment of the many of the worker, many of the people in the country. So what is the pros cons? We will discuss all on this issue. And for discussion on this very topic, we have in the studio Dr. Ravi Ranjan. He teaches political science and also looking after its impact, NREGA impact on the different parts of the country. So I hope his knowledge and experience will help us to understand this topic in a new perspective. So on your behalf, I welcome Dr. Ravi Ranjan for the EduSet lecture on this very topic. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, EduSet, for calling me for this lecture. And as Amrendra has raised that economic development again has to be understand in different contexts, particularly in the context of world economy. World economy is all the world economy is impacting almost all nations of the country, and that's why we are saying that we are living in a world order where nation states are supposed to play their important role. But how economic development in India is changing in the context of liberalization and globalization, that one has to understand. So the entire impact of world economy in India is coming through the process of liberalization and globalization, when the state economy is supposed to merge with the international economy, and changes in the international economy is but natural, has an effect on the national economy. So today in my lecture I am planning to connect three things: that how economic development is related to some kind of idea of social security, and how social security can be translated through job security or job guarantee, and how this development model of neoliberal development model of 1990s under the process of globalization is affecting the possibility of getting job, particularly job guarantee in the rural sector of India or rural portion of India. Job guarantee has been always a key issue for economy, because we know that employment and unemployment are the factors that is also a major indicator to measure the economy and to know the economy. So job security has to be understand from various perspective, and particularly from the perspective of social security. Can we have a economic development without job? Can we have a jobless economic growth? So we have to understand, and here many economists as well as political scientists are questioning the notion of growth in Indian economy, because growth may be good for the economy, but sometimes growth is not producing the desired result or some kind of social harmony and social equality between the citizens, between the rural and urban, between India and Bharat. We are saying there is a digital divide, economic divide. So we have to understand why such phenomena is happening, and what is the role of economy, how through policy measures this can be balanced, if not changed this can be balanced. So for this I am just planning to put economic development, Indian economic development, in institutional perspective, how institutions of state, civil society and market are involved in the era of globalization in Indian economy, and how this involvement of these three institutions are changing the economic shape of the country. At one point we are saying that India is signing India, and particularly the last government NDA government was coming with a new idea of signing India. The Indian economy is booming at the rate of more than 8% per year, but at the same time we are having the largest number of poor on this earth, those who are having less than $1 per day income. So these things are contradicting in each other. At one side we are having the highest growth, and we are knowing as we are called as one of the fastest growing economy. At the other hand, we are having many jobless people in this country. So I am just remembering Norman Uphoff, who said that the long arms of a state shortening and the reach of the market forces is being extended, but unevenly. The question is no longer whether decentralized collective action can be effective, but under what circumstances it is appropriate, and how positive synergy between the state, market, and civil organizations can most efficiently and fairly supply public goods. So we have to understand the role of state, how a state role is changing, particularly in the relation with civil society organizations and administration of the state and market. Market is developing day by day in various parts of India at a good speed, or you can say fast. It's growing fastly. But does this market is solving the problem of people or not? This is the biggest problem that one has to understand. And here, when the market is outreaching to each and every person, but still the development fruits are not evenly distributed among the citizens of India, so a state role comes into picture. How a state has to regulate the market or to check the market that it can produce even development, equitable distribution of fruits of the development, and for that purpose the notion of social security comes into picture, where a state is supposed to regulate through its economic mechanism and through the budgetary provisions, so that those who are on the margins of the society in economic terms have resources with themselves to progress as a better human resource. So therefore, we have to understand what is the relationship between social security and economic development, particularly from the perspective of job development, because the first criteria of being socially secure in terms of economy, that you are having a job, or at least you are having cash, so that you can buy out your daily necessities. Therefore, there was a cash crunch in India to the larger masses, and they were not able to buy out their daily requirements, their daily needs, their basic needs. So this was one of the concern that employment guarantee scheme and other social measures have been taken by the Indian state, because Indian state was thinking that at one point we are growing fastestly with the idea of economic growth, but at the other hand we are not in a position to support this growth for everybody. So the design of this presentation is that the presentation argues that a well designed economic employment guarantee scheme can be viewed as an important component of a development strategy in a developing country like India. Such a strategy can lead to economic growth that is inclusive in terms of employment by addressing some of the major concerns that India is facing with respect to its growth and has caused multiple exclusion in economy. So first we try to include people in we have tried to address the political exclusion, and that's why we have given reservation in elections and in distribution of seats to parliament and assembly, ensuring that this the decision making process or political participation process of the country should be inclusive one. But lately we realize that until unless without having an inclusion in economy, that everybody is participating in the economic process according to their talent, according to their requirement, we are not going to have a fully inclusive society. And without having an inclusive economic atmosphere, it is difficult to it is difficult to generate the fruits of development equally and even for the society. So we need to understand why job guarantee is important aspect of social security. Job guarantee and social securities are closely related. Employment guarantee can give us a good growth, or achieving growth we need employment guarantee. And it is not only India, that Amrendra has just at the starting of this lecture mentioned that world economy and world trade we are talking about and how we are connected with. So employment guarantee to achieve economic growth is not a new phenomena in India, and it is not only the Indian state which is coming with such idea, but initially also New Deal program of United States was the first major in the program in the industrialized countries that showed how employment generation by government can promote full employment. This approach is now developed into a major strategy under which government is seen as an employer of last resort to promote full employment in industrialized countries. And many people have talked about this. Philip Harvey, Minsky, many people have talked about it. In the case of developing countries also, a state-sponsored employment guarantee program can lead to full employment through the context. Now the context will be different. So we have to understand why a state is supposed to create economic development and why a state is supposed to have some kind of idea of job guarantee, because here a state has to regulate the economy, because a state can't leave economy to the market. Otherwise what will happen? Those who are marginalized in the society, those who are handicap in the society, they will be out of the market economy, out of the race, and ultimately we will have a very uneven kind of development, which is supporting, which must maybe supporting a very few of the population, like 5 or 10% elite of the population, and larger population will be untouched in the economic development or in the economic process, and ultimately this will lead to some kind of underdevelopment or some kind of uneven development in the country, finally leads to regional imbalances. There is a divide between rural and urban population, there is a divide between male and female due to job opportunity and job guarantee. So a state tried to understand that state has to regulate a mechanism where it has to ensure that everybody is having some kind of minimum economic resource for their livelihoods. And that's why the idea of inclusive growth come into the picture. But the idea of inclusive growth, the first step the inclusive growth has to take is the job guarantee. So generation of productive employment is very necessary for any economy in the world, and generation of productive employment for labor force in economy, as employment is the key to the inclusive growth. Employment generation in all sector, regions, and for all socio-economic groups, particularly for poorer sections of the population, backward regions, lagging sectors, and ST, and OBC, women, etc. We have to understand how this marginalized section can be part of the economy. Using an inclusion perspective to control inequalities and disparity by decentralized framework of economic participation in employment production. So we must have a framework decentralized enough from the national level to the village level, that giving chance to everybody to participate in the economic and political process of the society. Otherwise it will be very difficult to claim some kind of inclusive growth which can deliver the results in in even manner and distribute the fruits of development in even manner. So now we have to understand what is the background, because in the starting of the lecture we mentioned that since world economy is changing and due to process of liberalization and globalization, the things are changing very fast, particularly in terms of policy. So we have to talk about the post 90s that marked by the pursuit of neoliberal policies. Neoliberal policies are basically the market policy which are guided by the market factor or market forces. They are not taking into account the social structure of the society, they are not taking into account the marginalized section of the society. But ultimately process of globalization failed to understand why this uneven development fruits are coming into picture, why there is a lot of poverty with the high rise economic growth. So there is a contradiction between the high rise economic growth as well as in the development of uneven development or regional imbalances throughout the country. So we need to understand what are the basic points in post 1990 period economic development in terms of neoliberal policies, which is very important. So we are seeing that microeconomic policies, and there is a fall in the public, there is a falling public development expenditure as percentage of GDP on public works, employment generation, rural infrastructure, and social services, because market was not getting anything out of this rural infrastructure and public services. So a state where under the structural adjustment were forced to cut down their public expenditure in the name of fiscal governance or in the name of fiscal discipline, and this fiscal deficit by the state due to expenditure on the public sector was cut down shortly in the era of liberalization and globalization, and a state were not funding much of the social programs. So after 1990s, it was realized that process of globalization is creating a huge divide in the society, which may lead to the violent conflict, and that's why states throughout the world have decided to take globalization with a human face. So they came with a new idea, that they came with a new proposition, and this proposition was saying that until unless everybody is not becoming part of the economic process, it is difficult to resist the stability and it is difficult to resist the good governance. So there is these are the points that many social movements come due to the uneven development and due to the exploitation of natural resources by these multinational companies, because they were following the neoliberal policies, which is saying that those who are competent, they can participate in the market, those who are not competent either by due to some natural factor or due to some health factor, they are not supposed to participate in the market process, because they will not compete and ultimately they will get fail. So second, it is trade liberalization with farmers losing production against international price fluctuations, structural adjustment policies resulting in higher input costs, withdrawal of a state from the credit extension services, procurement and price support system. This leads to an unparalleled comprehensive crisis firm root in rural India. So rural India was mostly affected by such policies of such market driven policies, where market is playing the significant role in deciding the economic policies for the country. And those who were competent enough to produce requirement for the market, they were there in the market, others were out of the market. And finally we realize that there is a lot of peasant suicide throughout the country, starvation death, impoverishment, hunger death. So all these problems started cropping Indian government, and this pressure from the rural countryside is ultimately creating problem for lot of economic development or political development in the countries in post 90s. So what was the exact rural crisis in the background of which this kind of international economic understanding was developed, that rural or the people who are not having uh, required amount of resources, they are supposed to address through the economic measures, or they are supposed to get relief from the government policies. So what was the rural crisis? So rural crisis was growing unemployment and underdevelopment, falling purchasing power, decline per capita availability of food grains, reduced farm income and real wage growth, indebtedness and land alienation, especially for small and migrant farmers, deceleration in agriculture growth productivity per worker and rural non-agriculture employment growth, slacking pace of poverty reduction and worsening poverty amongst the marginalized social groups and ethnic minorities. So we have to understand at the rural level, although market was developing with a very high speed or with a good economic growth policies, but ultimately it was the urban areas who were get catered by the market policies, and rural areas were completely alienated. And particularly the biggest effect or the biggest damage that we have done, or this neoliberal policy has done with the agriculture sector. And we know that the largest population or the highest amount of population depending for their economic requirement is the agriculture sector. But slowly and gradually we can see from the figures that in India, agriculture was the primary source of economy. Now it becomes the second. After some time in the third, fourth, fifth plan, it was the industry which was contributing to the GDP. But now it is the service sector which is contributing highest in the GDP. So almost decline of agriculture and role of agriculture in the GDP is one of the reason that why such kind of crisis has been generated through the market economy in the countryside of the country. So what are the challenges for the rural development? How we can make inclusive? When I am using the term inclusive economic growth, I am talking about we have to first understand there is a divide between rural and urban India, and today I am making an advocacy for the rural India. Why we need to understand rural India? So in the 71% of India's population is rural. 29% of rural population, more than 200 million people are below poverty line. Rural poverty, although decline, but it is not sufficient enough to understand. 46% of rural children under 5, 40% of adult women, and 38% of adult men are underweight. In compared to the 33, 25 and 26% for the urban sector. So there is a great amount of difference between urban and rural population for the same kind of facilities, and this is creating a lot of problem, and this is creating a big divide. So there is always urban versus rural population, and finally the state realized that unless the state is not going to create some kind of market mechanism or regulating the market mechanism that can help the poor to come out of the stage of or phase of unemployment, it will be difficult for a state to understand this crisis. And this crisis impacted the change of government at the central level when BJP led National Democratic Alliance was going throughout India talking about the signing India, but this signing India was only for the few people or very few very short population, a very short percentage of the population throughout the country. And finally rural India decided to vote against the government, which is only talking about the urban population and urban signing India. 59% of small and marginal farmers are landless laborers who depend on agriculture. They were thinking that is the right time to vote against the market economy or against the market forces. And after that, government at the center realized that it is necessary to address the rural challenges or challenges due to economic uneven development in economic sector in the rural and urban India. So between 1990 and with till today, we can say there are few changes in terms of economic policy, and particularly in terms of the state policies to address the uneven development or to address the marginalized section of the society. So liberal economic policies and reforms introduced in early 1990s, driven by the rapid growth in manufacturing and service sector. So here agriculture sector is missing, on which 60% of Indian population are depending on the agriculture sector. So we can see growth rate in agriculture sector has declined since 1997 and remains very low. The share of agriculture in GDP has declined from 43% in 1970 to 22%. So there is the share of agriculture is becoming less than half of the share that it has, 43% in 1970. So we can think how the 60% of the population which is depending on the agriculture activities, on agriculture related activities, how they were surviving due to changes in the economic policy. And the policy was primarily focused on the service sector, primarily focused on the urban areas. So public investment in irrigation has also fallen. So we can see how this economic policy, world economic policy, has affected the larger population of India and created some kind of uneven development, and there was a divide created by the economy between the rural India and the urban India. So what is the effect of this crisis in rural India? What happened? What are the changes that rural India wants? So the effect of rural factor is finally translated into some kind of demand for inclusive growth. What is this demand for inclusive growth? The distress resulted in electoral defeat of the NDA government at the center, and UPA government promised to enact the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, which has potential to turning the agrarian distress. However, forces within the government itself oppose a full-fledged employment guarantee and produced various diluted and inadequate version of draft act. Interventions by left parties and pressure groups from mass organizations, social movement and NGO resulted in successful enactment of the improved employment guarantee. So it was realized at the central level that now the rural India is demanding some kind of intervention by the state in the market economy, so that a state can think of rural people and try to enact a policy which ultimately help the rural people to come out of the distress, that economic distress. And this distress was coming in forms of larger scale migration from one state to another. For instance, people from Bihar come to the Mumbai and Delhi, and then there is a regional imbalance, regional problem and sub-regional problem, and nationalism problem is coming out. Bihari versus others in Maharashtra. Similarly, in Gujarat, many people from Rajasthan used to go for the work because Gujarat is having a vibrant economy due to the economic participation by the world market in comparison to Rajasthan. But this kind of development was not supporting the people who are at the margins of the society in terms of their economic requirement. So this rural factor forced the government to think in terms of the inclusive growth, because they forced after BJP getting out of power and Congress getting in, the government realized that it is the right time that we have to address the need of the people. Otherwise, we have to lose the power. How the BJP has lost in the 2004 election. So after 2004, Congress-led UPA decided to go for a major flagship program to address the unemployment and particularly the social security aspect of the economic development, and they decided that there should be some kind of provision for employment guarantee sponsored by the state, so that people can have minimum cash to fulfill their bare minimum necessities. And just fulfilling the bare minimum necessities, government came with the idea of some kind of employment guarantee program. So what are the potential of such employment guarantee program? Are they going to solve the problem? Is it a cash transfer scheme, or many people are saying it is a dole and it is not going to help the Indian state in long-term policy measure. So what is the potential and how this employment guarantee scheme? First, we will try to understand the general prospect of employment guarantee and how it is related with the idea of social security, and ultimately how employment guarantee is contributing towards the economic development of India, or how it is making development process as evenly distributed process, or how it is going to create some kind of even development or development for all. So the potential of employment guarantee program has to understand. So the potential of economic employment guarantee program, if we see the potential, so first it has a potential to boost your social infrastructure for care of education, health, water, sanitation by for providing human capabilities, skill and quality of life. Second, the potential of employment guarantee scheme is that economic infrastructure to promote economic growth. Third, infrastructure of agriculture, water said management, irrigation, etc. Natural capacity building related to land development, water augmentation, forestry for raising productivity of workers in the allied activities, and asset generation. After this employment generation, through employment generation, government can create some kind of asset in terms of ponds, roads. Asset building activities can be done through the participation of those who are unemployed, those who are nothing to do, and if they are motivated through the employment guarantee scheme to produce some asset for the community at a large. If they are just having a pond, or they are just having a small water sources where they can do the fisheries and other related activities, so it will ultimately increase the economic participation of the society and also the economic growth of the society. So we have to understand the potential of employment guarantee, and that's why worldwide state think that in the competitive market system, a larger population will go out of the economic policy or economic arena. So to ensure the participation of everybody in the development process, it is necessary that the employment should be ensured assured. Why we are assuring employment for unemployed person? A, that he may be able to fulfill, or she may be able to fulfill his or her own requirements, basic requirements. B, without participation, economy can't boosted and development fruits can't be distributed equally. And C, there is always a danger to the state, that state is thinking that if larger people will not participate in the economic process, and their frustration and their irritation with the government system or economic process may lead to the violent conflict in the society. And there are many such problems due to mining and other social movements are creating a lot of problem for the state. So a state has decided that there is some kind of potential to have some kind of stability if we can regulate the market system and try to interfere with the new employment guarantee scheme. Role of employment guarantee program. So now we have seen the potential about potential of employment guarantee. Now how we can understand the role of employment guarantee program, how employment guarantee program can ensure the fruits that we are talking about. So what will happen if the employment guarantee scheme is there? So employment guarantee scheme will improve the quality of life, it will improve the public provisioning and infrastructure, improve productivity, technology in income generating activities, release women and poor for productive activities, promote capital formation and improve labor absorbing capacity of the economy, promote labor intensive development and increase labor productivity, technology in economic activities, encourage sustainable development. However, but this employment guarantee program is not the last resort, and none of the state, neither the citizens should think that it is a last resort and they will be depending on the state, because we all know that the outlay out of our general budget is very high for the employment guarantee scheme, and none of the state, including the government of India, can have a capacity in terms of economy to maintain such a system for longer time. So the idea of this system is that the larger population should participate in economic process, and they should create a common asset on which they can work throughout the year to have their livelihood out of the economic participation. So therefore, Dantwala has already claimed that, however, employment guarantee program is not for creating a permanent army of unskilled workers. It is successful when it is not needed. So at one point of time, we have to realize that employment guarantee program for social security measure in terms of economic growth is not a permanent feature, and it should not never be a permanent feature for the any state. Otherwise the state will crumble down due to its economy will crumble down, because it needs lot of economic resources to manage such a huge or ambitious economic program. So it may be used as a transit method to come out of this negative development process, because negative growth of the development process was that it was creating a huge army of unskilled or unemployed people, and they were not even in a position to fulfill their basic needs. That's why we came with idea of employment guarantee. But employment guarantee is a transitory measure, it is a time gap arrangement, and the ultimate objective would be that on the basis of this employment guarantee, the people of this country or the citizen of this country should try to participate in the economic process in such a way that they must be able to create some kind of permanent asset on the basis of which they can have rest of their life depending for the livelihood. Now, what are the economic thinking behind the social security arrangements? How economists are thinking, and are they thinking that it is a burden on the economy, or are they thinking that it is not going to help the economy? Because market is saying that it is not good for the market, it is not good for the growth, and it is not good for a healthy economy that people must depend on the state for the employment, and the state has to do some kind of dole or charity or distribute the resources on the rural population for not a very high return or not a very good return job. So there are three kinds of perspective on economic thinking on social security. First perspective is talking about left Keynesian. Those who are left Keynesian, those who are Keynesian and also tilted towards left, they are thinking that it is both. This employment guarantee as a job security is both desirable and feasible for broad-based equitable growth to revive agriculture and the rural economy by creation of productive asset, and the multiplier effect of demand expansion in the situation of excess capacity, unemployment and idle resources. Second, those who are supporters of market, generally we call them neoliberal. Neoliberals are saying that it is neither desirable nor feasible on the grounds of non-affordability, corruption and preference for human capital and infrastructure-led growth model. So one is saying it is necessary and desirable and feasible. A state can have this program, must have this program, and a state can handle this program. The other approach, other perspective is saying that for a long run, a state can't run this program, and it is against the growth notion of growth. Third is liberals, who are between these two positions. They are saying it is human face of globalization, a kind of society safety net, which is desirable but feasible only under very restricted conditions for the physical discipline. So they are saying that we must understand, while giving this kind of charity or while giving this kind of impetus to the economy by providing employment guarantee to the citizens of India, we must have some kind of physical discipline. Otherwise, for a longer time, we are not in a position to run this kind of policy, because it costs very high on the economy. Idea of employment guarantee. Now we have to understand how this idea of employment guarantee is working in this country. The Employment Guarantee Act is a step towards right to work as an aspect of fundamental right to life with dignity. Second, it is a recognition that the state cannot retreat from the rural development and is responsible to ensure food and livelihood security for the masses. Third, National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005, which is running today, is a law whereby any adult who is willing to do unskilled manual work at the minimum wage is entitled to being employed on local public work within 15 days of applying, with a guarantee of 100 days of unskilled manual work per household per year. NREGA is a demand-driven program. So there was a demand by the rural unemployed people that they should be given employment. So it is a demand-driven economic formulation. So NRGS is a demand-driven program, and employment is to be provided to eligible workers on the demand within 15 days. Step one, they have everyone has to register. Those who are those who wish to do a job or do a work, they are supposed to get registered. So first step is registration, second step is verification, third step is issuing job cards, and fourth is application for the job. So, what are the thrust area that this employment guarantee is talking about? Employment guarantee is talking about, since there is a economy is growing around 8%, paradigm of policy shift in rural development, rural poor treated as a resource and integral part of the development strategy and not as a burden. So, the objective is to bridging the rural urban divide, guaranteeing wage employment and ensuring food security, making rural people the arbiters of their own destiny and to provide. So it is also helping the people at the rural level to make decision on their own behalf, particularly in terms of economy, creating rural infrastructure for better economic opportunities and growth, ensuring dignified living, shelter, water, clean environment, restoring lost or depleted productivity of land for better livelihood opportunities. So finally, this kind of employment guarantee scheme, it was realized that until unless this 8% growth is not going to help people in the agriculture sector, which is a prime which is a prime economic activity sector, where 60% population are depending for their livelihood, if you are not going to do this, this 8% growth is not going to support the economy in a big way. So there is a necessity for ensuring the livelihood at local level or at the level of village. Now this entire concept of local livelihood, social security, rural development, it was grassroots participation in decision making process in Panchayati Raj system. It was added all together, and the UPA government has coined it as a Bharat Nirman program. So under the Bharat Nirman program, development work are undertaken in the areas of irrigation, road, rural housing, rural water supply, rural electrification and rural telecommunication connectivity. Three goals of Bharat Nirman fall within the mandate of Ministry of Rural Development: rural connectivity, rural housing, rural water. But this the Bharat Nirman Yojana was a part of the National Common Minimum Program. But the basic was that there should be good human resource, or there should be capable human resource to carry out the mission of Bharat Nirman Yojana. So Government of India and the Congress-led UPS thought that it is necessary that people should be given some kind of job assurance at least for some days, so that they can handle their necessities by having ample cash to buy out their necessity daily livelihood items. So now we come to the NREGA. This earlier it was National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, but after its implementation, it was renamed as a Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. So it is one of the flagship UPA program. National Employment Guarantee Act was passed, 2000 Act was passed. The Act guaranteed 100-day employment in financial year to every household, a social safety net for a vulnerable group, and opportunity to combine growth and equity, a structure towards harnessing rural workforce not as a recipient of dose but productive partners into our economic process. Asset created result in sustained employment for areas for future growth, employment and self-sufficiency, and it was operationalized. It is in operation since 2nd February 2006. Now, what are the basic fundamental principles on this, on which this program is based? So the NREGA fundamental principles are employment on demand. It is a legal right because it is passed by the Act of Parliament. It is a legal right. Universal entitlement is ensured that everybody who is not having a job and he is eligible under the Act, and he wishes to do a job, it is the duty of the state to provide some kind of job. So it has universal entitlement. Participatory approach, people are participating in this process. Accountability to PRI, Panchayati Raj institutions are accountable to look into it, and there is a kind of transparency that the people who are participating themselves, they are deciding their economic future, and that's why they are also looking into some kind of transparency. So transparency is also ensured. It is assumed that the transparency will be ensured by the local organizations or the office bearers of the Panchayat Raj. They will have a check or vigilance on the functioning of this act. What are the basic entitlements? I have already said that it is a 100-day job, but there are other provisions also as a basic entitlement of the act. Employment within 15 days of application. If anybody is applying for the job, he or she will get a job within 15 days. Unemployment allowance, if the state or the government fail to give them employment, they are supposed to get unemployment allowance. They have to work within 5 kilometers of their house. Payment within 15 days. No gender discrimination. Women or men are equally given the job opportunity and they will be paid equally. Basic worksite facility. There are basic facilities that has to be given by the government agencies at the work sites, like CRES, midday care center for the children whose father and mother is involved in some kind of NREGA project. So these are the things that state has to ensure while implementing this National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. NREGA and poverty reduction. So now we have to understand how this National Rural Employment Guarantee Act is going to affect the poverty, because poverty alleviation is the one of the major target that Government of India is decided while putting this act into order. The potential NREGA holds a huge promise of poverty reduction, which is supplementary average annual household income of rupees 6,000 for this. Wages, work days and aggregate expenditure on the scheme should be high if the program has to make any significant dent to the poverty. So the idea was that whether the NREGA is going to help Government of India in alleviation of poverty or not, it is one of the major concern. So experience is that poverty reducing potential is severely undermining thought, non-recognition of eligible person at right holders, but there should be some kind of correlation between the poverty reduction and the NREGA. NREGA should be given as a job guarantee to the citizens, rural people, but it should not be measured in terms of the poverty reduction, because many times we will realize that as NREGA schemes are helping people in getting job and people are easily getting their livelihoods, but sometimes since it is sponsored by a state, so a state say that they are not in a position to get this money every time, and poverty alleviation cannot be done. But government should also take it as a poverty alleviation program, because ultimately it is helping the Government of India to have people who are having better human resource and they can contribute to the economy in a bigger way. Now there is a provision of unemployment allowances. It's a very unique thing, but most of the state still are not in a position to pay the actual wage, so it is very difficult sometimes to get the unemployment allowances. It is the 7 provision, section 7(1) of the act is saying that if employment is not provided within 15 days, then there is a provision for unemployment allowances. So unemployment allowances has to be given so that if the state is not in a position to provide the work, still state has to take care of those who are not in a position to get their livelihood. So this is that. Then what is the rate of what is the price or what is the economic benefit that people are getting due to this employment guarantee scheme? So it is the minimum wage. Minimum wage is different for different state due to our price indexing system. So every individual who is getting any job under the NREGA scheme is entitled to get the minimum wage act which is prevalent in that state. A person working for 7 hours would normally earn a wage equal to the wage rates. Minimum wage fixed by the state government under the Minimum Wage Act 1948. Center may fix wages at not less than 60 rupees at that point of time, because after that there is a dearness allowance or there is a DA added to all wages. Act permits productivity linked wages under price rate with due protection. So if somebody is doing work on the piece basis, so there is a different format of paying the wages. What are the work that government is taking under the NRGA. So keeping in mind that it is not it is going to help government in reduce poverty, and B, it is, but the main objective is that the NRGA work should be designed in such a way that it may help people of the village to have some kind of permanent asset on the basis of which they can run their future livelihoods. So what are the permissible works in order of priority? First is water conservation, second is drought proofing, irrigation, renovation of traditional water bodies, land development, flood control, rural connectivity, any other work which the state or central government is thinking that it is necessary, but the priority of the work need to be decided by the PRIs or the office bearers of the Panchayati Raj institution with the help of the consent of Gram Sabha. So Gram Sabha is talking about what are the priority in those areas, what kind of work. For instance, many areas are not, the first priority is not the water harvesting, the first priority may be the flood control or maybe the forestation. So there are different kind of work that has to be organized with the help of a state official for the NRGA workers, but the ultimate aim is that this should be this work should not be on the primarily on the private land. If the government land is not available where the permanent community asset can be generated, then land of SC, STs and others can be taken for the development, and so that they, after having some kind of forest or plantation on these lands, the actual landholders who are coming from the marginalized section of the society, they can be benefited by selling this wood product after maturity. But the government is also given a provision that this work site where the people are supposed to go and have work, this work site must have some facility for laborers, safe drinking water, shade for children, first aid box, depute one woman worker to look after 5 or more children. So this kind of mandatory work site facilities has to be provided by the government of India or provided by the government, state government, so that workers who are working on the work site, they are getting minimum facilities to sustain themselves. Now, what are the outcome? How we can assume about the outcome? We have to check from where I have started my presentation. When I said that National Rural Employment Guarantee is taken as a measure of social security. So whether the outcome is coming as a social security or it is it is developing as a inclusive growth or not, we have to think of. So what are the outcomes of this act? So first, there is a reduction in distress out migration due to availability of additional income and work, creation and repair of rural infrastructure like roads and water bodies, retention of children in school, greater investment in local area development due to flow of funds and village meetings, changing local dynamics in many places with the recognition by workers that they are right holders. So it is not a charity program, it is a right based approach. Expansion of membership and activities of workers and peasants organization. So this outcome, one surety that this Rural Employment Guarantee Act is giving, that A, people are thinking that it is their right to have an employment and the right to work, which is given in the directive principles of the state policies, where constitution is directing the state to ensure that everybody has a decent condition of working and every eligible person must have some kind of employment. And Article 21, where government of India through constitution is assuring us right to life, because without resource we can't have our livelihood, without livelihood we can't assume our life. So right to life has an extended meaning which can be incorporated in National Rural Employment Guarantee Act provision, and say that directive principle of a state has a minimum obligation to fulfill our rights, and government of India is also responsible for this kind of activity, because we have a right to life in the constitution. And that's why after the hunger death on PUCL writ petition in Rajasthan High Court, the court has given direction that state government can't say no on the basis of deficit of resources or non-availability of resources, particularly in case of hunger death, when we are having resources and we are not able to distribute these resources evenly throughout the country to stop malnutrition and hunger death. So under right to life, there is a protection to this act, or there is a protection provision which can be incorporated in which has been incorporated in this act while arguing for employment guarantee. The other change, what are the other changes that we are feeling due to the implementation of this act? So the first major impact is that this act has increase the participation of marginalized section, particularly scheduled caste and scheduled tribe people of India, in the national economic development process. So major share of SC/ST households in the employment, their share has increased throughout the India, and now SC and STs collectively having 61% share in this employment guarantee job scheme. So this is one of the major impact, that the population which has been marginalized and they were not part of the active economic process for a longer time, now they are part of the economic process and they are participating and they are earning their livelihoods. There is a development in that section of society. Second, that women are getting women are getting job, and 40% women are getting job on this NREGA process. So larger participation of women in economic economic process is going on. And we know that media has to play a very important role, but even in the social development process also, because it is not only carrying the message or news of the policy, but media is also carrying the news of the development process to the people about the act, about the awareness of the act. So what media has to say, Hindu and other newspaper are actively reporting on the NREGA schemes and NREGA provisions, and now people are coming for the job and they are demanding job after seeing this kind of news. So this way we can say that the employment guarantee scheme is not only doing some kind of social security measure for the population or rural population who are out of the job and who are not participating actively in the economic process, but it is ultimately helping the economic growth or economic development of the country. What are the critical issues that NREGA failed to address? So activating the worker application process, implementation of transparency and safeguard, timely wage payment is not there, need for wage policy, women's participation is still not up to the mark in decision making, there is no redressal system. What are the suggestions? Suggestions are that there is a weak planning component, the design of NREGA has to be revisited, lack of political strategy to address the structural issues in implementation of this act. This act, we need to ensure the quality of work, that the work people are doing as a creation of collective assets should be sound enough, because it is ultimately going to help the people of that area only. The major issue is the issue of corruption. So there should be kind of transparencies need to be ensured in terms of data, in terms of wage payment, in terms of software. So there is no transparency. A special focus and concern for the vigilance is that muster rolls should be updated. What kind of work has to be taken, that has to be decided by the Gram Sabha, and Gram Sabha must have some kind of active and interference. Wage should be paid to workers timely. Workers are persuaded to open saving account, or there should be provision for account for the wage earner, so that money can be directly transferred without having cut or commission to the middleman. Monitoring and evaluation of the act has to be done, field verification, national level monitoring, district level monitoring. So these are the advices. People's participation of MPs, MLA of those areas, they should also visit and try to put pressure on the government that how the things are moving or not. Then public accountability through social audit. Social audit is a big way coming to correct this. There is a social audit for work, that the work is quality work, wage has been paid according to the provisions of the act, there is no discrimination. So this can be done. And on the basis of this, one can say that this National Employment Guarantee Scheme, as a first step, or we can say one of the steps towards social security, is finally contributing not only to the better livelihood and better living opportunity for the citizens of India, particularly the rural population, but ultimately it is contributing in the economic development in the era of globalization, and to check the uneven development process, and to check the market non-responsibility of the market, because market is not taking care of the all people, and to ensure even development process and development fruits has to be distributed equally. There is a need to revisit this program, and economic development process should be designed in such a way that a state must have ample space to regulate the economic process. Whatever market forces are saying, irrespective of their pressure, the state must ensure that equality has been maintained throughout the economic development. This will be the last thing that I would like to say.
So it means you are not satisfied with the way it's being implemented. That's why it need to be revisited. So what are the major anomalies in this in the implementation of the program?
See, I have visited many villages for my research on NRGA, and I found that many places people are not aware about the act, provisions of the act. They were not aware about the unemployment unemployment benefits, that if the state failed to give them the employment, what are the unemployment wages. So local politicians are playing, particularly the Gram Panchayat politicians are playing major role in getting the job for their own people. Workers have to wait for the wages. There is a huge problem of corruption in the act. So these are the problems. That's why I am saying the intent and the objective of the act is good, to ensure even development process in India, but implementation process is not foolproof. So there is a need to revisit the act
At implementation level.
Implementation process, and some provisions has to be added, because everyday economy is changing, our demand is changing, rural people demand is changing, and somehow it is not training people to have a permanent kind of a because none of the provisions of the act is saying that there should be some kind of training like ITI training, or so that people can participate in the job market or participate in the economic process. It is just a temporal arrangement, and this temporal arrangement has some kind of limitations.
So how this is affecting the agriculture setup of the villages?
Agriculture, there are two things that has to be understand when we are talking about NRGA, that it was all the rural crisis due to the non-participation of agriculture, due to the less participation or decline in participation of agriculture sector in GDP, that we have thought of this act. But what happened due to NRGA, there is a problem that many farmers complain that due to NRGA they are not getting manpower to support their agriculture activity, and since this NRGA work is not helping people, those who are engaged in the agriculture activity, in terms of giving them the fertilizers and other things. So this is ultimately not supporting the agriculture in that way, because of labor crisis. Labor crisis is one component that agriculture people are saying that it is affecting their productivity.
Okay. So well friends, as Dr. Ranjan is suggesting that there are some kind of correction is required if we want to take further on this NREGA project, and only then it will be beneficial for the country. So I hope you must have understood the basic concept and what the NREGA is all about. So with this word we conclude the lecture here, and I thank all of you for watching the lecture, and on your behalf I thank Dr. Ravi Ranjan for giving such a wonderful lecture. Thank you very much.